Mike from around the world. How you doing tonight, Mike?
Pastor Paul, God bless you. I'm doing well.
Okay, let me crank you up a little bit louder. Oh, let's try that
All right,
again.
let me see if I can get it. How about that?
Oh,
Is that good?
that's wonderful. Wonderful.
Okay, great.
Mike!
A lot going on.
Yeah. Let's start with this second event. It's happened. I mean, tell us, has there been any?
Yeah, it's still going, too. Still going.
It's still happening. Tell us about it.
Yeah, it's still happening. So there's been, we have on the heliosphere, it just hit the heliosphere building up in power. The last one did not build up in power, nor was it stringy. Like this one is stringy because it wasn't one concentrated, force coming in at one horizontal or vertical line. This one is like all over the place. Now, given the instabilities of the sun right now in the earth, who knows what this thing will cause, but something will take place within the next 72 hours again. Sometime in that time frame, we'll certainly see some sort of effect. But I have there's a worry that I have right now.
Okay.
A worry. And the worry has to do with these reports that are coming out concerning the core of the earth.
Okay.
The question is not why did now it's the inner core they're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Part of the cover story, or let's just say some of the scientists out there will say, well, that happens every 70 years. 70 years. Now, just think about this. Why in the world would anybody ever make that public? Number one.
Yeah.
Why would the number happen to be 70 years? Number two, right? Every 70 years. When I mean, that just dispels. You're talking about years of research. And for example, because I'm very familiar with this, some of the people who study the Earth and its inner mechanisms, they understand that in the Pittsburgh Supercomputing Center, Los Alamos National Laboratory, they had a set of confirmed modeling data that came back for 300,000 years, demonstrating some of the fluid dynamics of the interior of the Earth, and they know that the inner core changing direction starts a very destructive process. And by the way, it wasn't every 70 years. It was every 36,000 years, or at minimal 10,000 years, that the inner core would reverse, not every 70 years.
What?
That doesn't, every 70 years does not work. The math doesn't work. Nothing works. If the Earth's inner rotation reverses every 70 years, that's crazy, because even right now, the rotation of the internal core, right? Even in fluid dynamics or thermal dynamics, only on rare occasions in thermal dynamics do fluid motions and magnetic fields evolve in a compatible manner to allow original field to diffuse and completely out the inner core. So that would form a new dipole. The polarity would change. Diffusion would happen to establish a reversed magnetic field. And you know what that means? The surface of the Earth would become highly unstable. So how can that be?
Right. So in other words, you're saying
the inner core
can't do it every 70 years.
No. The inner core, right? Its momentum, the momentum of the inner core,
right,
is a very important mechanism in what happens to the surface of the planet. And if they're reporting, what they're picking up are echoes that have obviously changed their eastern trajectory to a western trajectory, right? Which means if that is the case, we're going to have a problem in the upper crust in less than, 40 days?
What?
It's not going to be good. That's less than 40 days. You're talking about, because the modeling data is very consistent. It's very predictive. Right, very predictive, and the liquid zones that extend from a depth of 2,900 kilometers to a depth of about 5,100 kilometers, right? They produce currents, and those currents are flowing liquid caused by the differences of temperature. That's why it moves in the first place. A difference of temperatures. Keep that in mind. So it's real hot in the middle, right? Yep. Real cool at the top. That difference in temperature causes a flow of electrons, which can be measured all the time. what that means is if the interior stops like that, we're going to have temperature fluctuations on the top of the Earth like nobody's ever seen. And by the way, the last time the Earth did this was during the Ice Age.
No, well, now, Mike. Okay, so in other words, the timeout. We got these scientists telling us that this happens every 70 years, but it's no big deal. There's no catastrophe that could be caused from this. So don't worry about it. You're saying no, that's insanity.
I don't believe that.
Don't believe a word of that.
Don't believe that.
Okay.
I do not. I know the sun reverses. Magnetic field reverses in the sun every 11 years.
Yes,
right?
That's solar.
And the
cycles.
time between that time between reversals on the Earth is at least 10,000 years. Sometimes as long as 25 million years. Now, this is based on the strata and the evidence from the strata, the dipoles and the rocks are the magnetic, the north and south poles of rocks that are become magnets and so forth, right? So we know that's because every time it changes, it's going to have some type of effect. And it takes 500 years, right, for those magnetic field lines to realign and for stability to come back in again. So it's not like an instant recovery. And what this means to me is this. If they're reporting this, somebody did that on purpose. Forget about the rest of the story. Somebody did that on purpose. Somebody actually cares is what's happening.
It was CNN.
Because to report something like that is dramatic. That is very dramatic.
It's CNN. It's this guy right here. I'm going to see if I can give you his name. CNN put him on.
And that's Michio Kaku. He's an interpreter. So he probably didn't come up with the data at all. I guarantee he didn't come up with the data. He probably tried to explain that data.
Okay.
I doubt if he came up with it.
Okay.
But that's the situation. Nobody can just come out and say, hey, the Earth's core stopped.
Okay.
Really? You don't say that. There are other components involved.
Okay.
And you have some of the most expensive supercomputers and quantum computers in the world that will not validate a 70-year rotation differential in the Earth. You can't do that.
Can't do that. So
that
what
just
we're
doesn't
hearing,
work.
so what you're hearing from Mike around the world tonight is there's no way that every 70 years that the core of the Earth stops. But yes, the core of the Earth can stop, and when it does, it has to affect the temperature of the Earth, the crustal placement. I mean, are you talking crustal displacement on the surface?
We are. They will admit they do not know the mechanism of why the continents are constantly have those upheavals or spreading apart. Yeah. Right. Everything is connected. They really don't spread apart. That's not what's happening. The rock is being recycled, right? As parts of the land go up, the other parts go down. So, but just imagine this. When you stop that armature or the core of the Earth, you're going to have chaotic field lines of force inside the Earth. You know what that means?
No.
That means, and they're trying to tell everybody that the outer core, that molten outer core is not connected with the inner core.
Yeah.
That is hogwash because all of it's one dynamic system. It's a dynamic system, not static, it's dynamic.
Okay.
And one component will always affect the other. So some of the weather changes that we have been experiencing in the oceans are directly related to the instabilities in the core of the Earth. And when I was talking about a reversal, I meant a reversal of the Earth's rotation, period.
Yeah,
right?
You're not talking about you weren't talking about the core. You're talking about a reversal of the spinning of the
entire Earth.
No,
there you go. The entire Earth, because what you're dealing with motion, right?
Yeah.
That force of motion has to go somewhere, and they already know through modeling how that happens. Right? They've seen it on Venus. They've seen it on Saturn. It's been proven over and over and over again.
So, Mike, what you're saying to us that this event is not just a blip on the screen. This is a development that's going to. Is this when Isaiah said the Earth's going to reel and rock like a drunkard? Is it caused by this kind of activity?
Well, according to the modeling data, and the modeling data has been accurate again. When they did the modeling data, right? when they ran the parallel on the supercomputers at Pittsburgh, the Supercomputing Center, and Los Alamos National Laboratory, they did a 300,000 year simulation that went all the way up to 300,000 years. It has been refined, worked on in the weather phenomena. Why does it match the modeling starting? Now, they did this modeling starting in 1995. Why does the weather phenomena match what it was on the computer simulations? Why? Because they did a very accurate.
Okay.
They had very accurate results from this modeling data, and it continues to overlap with current conditions that we have, right? So here we are right now. We're about to go through a very unstable time, but that's not all. If the core of the Earth stops, it's not that the Earth doesn't do that itself. That comes from an external force. So we're going to have other objects around us, around this solar system, around the galaxy, also following suit. So it's just not the Earth. You're going to have other things happening also. And do you know what's starting to cut up? It's an indicator. I don't really see it as a worry. I know it's contrary to everybody else, but beetle guys, right? There's been an issue with beetle guys. Now we know beetle guys. What we're seeing in beetle guys is, 1,000 years old, right? What we're seeing of that, it could be totally blown right now. But beetle guys is an indicator for optical reasons, because it allows us to go ahead and get some very good information of objects in between, right? And objects in between beetle guys in the solar system are now starting to do a wicked shimmy, as I would say. Our sun is going to be an absolute indicator of instabilities if this is caused by an external force or not. They're always going to have a cover story, right? A whole city could be, if a whole city was destroyed by a comet, they would come on the news and say, no big deal. This has happened before. Just everybody get used to it. That's what they would say. They're always going to have a cover story. But we have a problem. We have instabilities in the cosmos, right? And someone has volunteered, someone pushed out this information, and I guarantee there's a penalty involved. They're not going to be celebrated as some, these scientists, so-and-so.
Right.
The names will change. If you get a chance, pull the original article and just keep a copy and watch it change over time.
I got it.
Because if most people who keep records, some of the articles from 2007 to this very date have been altered, changed, or you just won't find them anymore. They're not kept in an archive, especially dealing with the Earth's rotation. In fact, you'd be hard-pressed to find any data that matches what they used to print about the core of the Earth. Right now, you'd be hard-pressed to find that.
So in other words, as more information comes available, and more calculations, more modeling, then they look like idiots if they don't go back and rewrite history, and partly, or do they also take down articles to hide the truth, take the truth away? Does that happen?
The whole thing is they do not want the public, right?
Right.
If something were to ever happen that would involve massive death, you can forget hearing about the true story. If they cannot control it, they won't publicize it. They have to be able to control it. It's kind of like the Ukraine-Russian war, right?
Okay.
They can control the information flow coming from Russia. They know that. They can control that. So they can say anything they want to say.
Right.
They'll always report on that. It's not panning out. Here's something that doesn't pan out, for example. You always hear about Ukraine and how well they're doing, right?
Yeah.
Against Russia. So if they're doing so well, why do they need our tanks? Why do they need everybody's tanks? Why do they need all these missiles? If they're doing so well with what they have, why do they have to have all that equipment against somebody, they said, whose army is broken down? See, that exposes a big lie, right?
Right.
Because
sure
if
does.
Putin's army was no good, if he was just stressed out, and all his people turned against him, they would not need new tanks.
No.
So that they kind of, if you look beyond the propaganda into the elements of the story, not the story, the elements of the story, you can catch them every single time.
Yeah.
It's almost like they can't help it.
So
they have to step on their own toes.
Is there a provoking? I mean, look, I don't like what you told us back in 2014 when he first got in there, took Crimea. You said, look, he's never going to leave. He will eventually take Ukraine. You were right. He didn't leave. And here he is invading 8 years later. I don't like a lot of stuff he did. But let me ask you a question. Is he being provoked right now by the West? I mean, are we?
He's in the way. He's in the way.
He's in the way.
What
Explain.
they're doing right now, Pastor Paul, they're going to force a brand new lifestyle upon everybody. And Putin is in the way.
Oh, wow.
Putin does not speak the language of everybody else. So he's just
So the globalists. So in other words, he's in the way of the globalist move of a new world order.
Sure he is. That's why you see everything prevailing against him,
yeah.
right? Which is not going to fare well for them. It's not going to fare well. You know about Iran, right?
Tell me. What about Iran?
People in Germany are dying. They're being killed by Iranian groups right now, and those numbers are about to explode. The numbers it's been a large number of people who have been basically, you could say, beheaded, assassinated, killed. This is by Iranian groups. They're building up in volume. Europe has a big problem, and because Russia and Iran, you cannot separate the two.
You
cannot
can't.
separate
You're right.
Russia from Iran.
Nope.
And so what we have here, we have a difference of alignments which is taking place. Among evil people, two evil groups, there's going to be a big war. And the Vatican's going to have to be the broker of that war. He's going to have to deal with the fallout. But what we see happening is a true buildup in the Middle East, a true buildup against all those NATO-aligned nations. That's happening right now. And the citizens are paying the price.
Israel
is already invaded.
Yeah,
that's why Benjamin Netanyahu, right? He's being pushed into a corner. He's trying desperately to have people see what's actually happening. The true story in Israel is that there are elements in Israel that should not be in that land. And it will take God himself to purge that place of those. They're embedded like ticks, and they're constantly, in agreement with Arabs. They're constantly in agreement with those individuals that will go against Israel, right?
Yes.
And they do this because they say that Israel is the troubling component of the entirety of the Middle East and world peace. And the only way to get rid of the problem in the Middle East is to disband Jerusalem, specifically Jerusalem.
Right.
And so you have a lot of contention, unspoken contention, but behind closed doors and in big meetings, Jerusalem is a topic every single day. Every single day.
It's the most talked about city in the world. It's the most.
Yes, it is.
It's the most contentious city. It's because it's spiritual. I mean, we're talking. It's the holy city of God.
That's right.
And so the battle is really supernatural. It's spiritual. It's a battle between Michael and Lucifer and 2/3 angels against a third, and we're kind of in the middle of this. The Bible in the book of Zechariah, chapter 12, says that Jerusalem will become this cup of trembling, a burdensome stone for all people.
It sure will. Because they'll come against her.
Yeah.
And after they come against her, that trampling of Jerusalem underfoot takes place 3.5 years.
Yep.
And at the end of that 3.5 years, God himself will remember his land, his covenant, and everything else, and all who set themselves against Jerusalem, they're going to pay for it. But that's how you get ticks out of the way.
Yep.
People that are dug in, that are hard to identify, right?
Yes.
Once Jerusalem is under siege, Pastor Paul, they're going to come out and say, see, I told you, I told you so. And then, but all of them will be identifying themselves. That's what the beast kingdom is, a vacuum. All these evil people are going to join the beast kingdom. They're going to combine themselves all in one big group, and that whole kingdom will be thrust into darkness. So that's why it must come also, because it will take these evil people out from among the good. A separation, a harvest, everything. It was going to be a separation anyway, but to see it manifest like it is, things are happening pretty quick.
And it was really prophesied to happen, folks. And for instance, someone made a comment that how can it be if Jerusalem is going to be the headquarters of the Antichrist? The truth is it won't be the headquarters of the Antichrist. The Antichrist will walk into the temple of God and say he's God, but Jesus Christ, his kingdom will never fail. You can read in Daniel 7, you'll find out that Christ himself returns and reigns 1,000 years in the city of Jerusalem. But that is a propaganda teaching Especially it's called, replacement theology. And there's been a teaching that the Jews usher in the Antichrist. The truth is the Jews build the temple to God, but the Antichrist hijacks it temporarily. And then, of course, he is the man of sin. He is ultimately defeated. The two witnesses come and they preach in the streets, and they even kill the two witnesses, and then they raise from the dead. All right, so Mike, what you're saying is Jerusalem is the center of the earth. It's the ultimate prize. It is what the pushing and shoving is all about. And so, do you think that then these things we're seeing, the Earth's core stopping, Planet X, let me ask you this, a binary system. Does the binary system affect the core of the Earth that's part of this slowing down of the core? Is that anything to do with it?
By the same modeling, right? At Los Alamos. It is.
It is.
It is. It is most
wow.
certainly a perturber.
I think that's news. I really don't think I've read that anywhere in the regular.
No, you're not going to read that.
No. So, in other words, they've done the modeling on this approaching binary system, and they know the effects it's going to have on the Earth, which includes the stopping of the center core.
Yeah, well, the absolute reversal. The new constellations that we'll see. We're going into a new part.
You're saying not just the core of the Earth reversal, but the whole planet itself.
Yeah, and it starts out as this almost unnoticeable process. It does not happen overnight. So here's what happens when here's a problem with this news about the Earth core stopping. The Earth generates electromagnetic field lines, right?
Yeah.
If we don't have those electromagnetic field lines, if we have them in a chaotic mode, right, which means they're twisting and turning all over the place.
Yeah.
Do you know what happens with the solar winds?
No.
The solar winds will not go to the poles. The solar winds are going to be absorbed all over the planet. That's not good.
That isn't good.
Because where the solar winds are absorbed, the magnetic field lines attract radiation.
Right.
And the radiation follows the field lines like they're on a highway, right? So magnetic field lines can redirect radiation, period. Hint, hint with CERN, right? Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. Oh, CERN.
When we're in a chaotic mode, the solar winds, we don't need a flare. We don't need a CME. We don't need anything. Just if the sun were quiet, if they go into a chaotic mode, things will begin to burn on the surface of the planet. And the places where it's not burning, they're going to freeze. Can you imagine a freeze / burn event happening at the exact same time? But one day in Indiana, it's 120 degrees, right? 5 hours from then is 30 below zero, followed by another 10 hours, and it's 109 degrees. Those extremes, because they found animals both incinerated, right, in rock. How do you incinerate an animal in rock? But the rock holds a shape, which was actually mud and vitrified, which means it was turned into glass, but it was the size of an elephant. They found a mammoth, right? The shape of a mammoth. It was encased in glass.
That means they took a massive.
There was no mammoth.
That is a massive
That
blast.
means it was incinerated.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
And the dirt turned into glass.
Yeah.
So, but at the same geologic time, they also found a mammoth eating with food in its mouth, frozen, just totally frozen. So the Earth can go through some pretty wild extremes. Historically, they have dug everything up. They know for a fact we're headed for something no one has ever experienced in living memory. They know how unstable it is. The only safe place from all of that is underground. Even though we'll have a water event, right? That's not the big deal. But if you go underground, you can regulate temperatures pretty good. You really can. If you go in the Earth at a specific depth, you can maintain temperatures. On the surface of the Earth, no way.
I see.
No way. So I expect this summer, right? Even if our core has slowed down a bit, I expect this summer to be so different we won't recognize. It's kind of like right now, we have July weather in the south.
Yep.
And winter weather in the north.
And
But, you know,
tornadoes.
it's January,
We're having
right?
tornadoes in Iowa
That's
in
right.
January and in the
That's
South
right.
almost every other
Followed
day
by a snowstorm,
by a
right?
snowstorm.
There you go.
It's weird.
So that happens, these extremes. And we've had 2 fronts that came through that were the size of the USA.
Yes, we did.
They didn't say a word, did they?
No,
They didn't say a word.
But you called
So,
it. You said that would happen, and it did happen.
and it's just beginning. It's what I'm saying is that the weather phenomenon we're going through is insignificant compared to what it's going to become in a very short time.
Let me ask you this
question.
We'll get back on the weather in a second. Okay, so also today we had an asteroid 2023 BU. We didn't even know it existed. Supposedly, it was located Saturday. It was the 4th closest asteroid to not hit us in recorded history. Just missed us by 2,000 miles. Is this the beginning of many more to come?
We have a lot headed in this direction. This is going to be a very interesting year. Very interesting year.
Well,
if everything stays on its trajectory, Pastor Paul, you know, fire is going to be a big deal. Fire is going to be a very big deal. So will flooding. Flooding is going to be off the record. It's just, you know, it's going to be incomparable to anything else. Plus, we're going to have, everybody remembers sinkholes, right?
Right.
So you might want to get ready for sinkholes in some very, you know, unsinkable places. People are going to find out that there is no stable place on the face of the earth. You can't seek stability, right, on the face of the earth when magma churns the way it does. It does not matter if you're on the top of Mount Everest. That mountain can be broken. And geologically, mountain ranges just like that, right, have disappeared overnight geologically. So forget about a safe place. People might want to have a relationship with Christ more than anything else.
Amen.
Because you're going to find everywhere they run is just not going to be conducive of safety. Conditions can change very quickly. So I wouldn't put my faith in a certain place to go. I wouldn't do that. Be ready to move, be flexible, but have your ears open to spiritual things most of all.
And that's why Psalms 91 is so important. You know, you want to
Yes, it is.
Abide in the shadow of the Almighty, and you know, you be in His secret place. Then the Bible also says, Mike, as you know, in Revelation, it says that in the coming of the Lord, that they'll cry for the rocks and the mountains to hide them from the face of Him that sitteth on the throne, and it won't work. The earth, there is no hiding place, is what you're saying. No. There is no safe place because this entire planet is coming under duress, total distress.
The landlord is coming back.
Yeah, and we're not.
And he's going to
give
everybody an eviction notice.
And we haven't done our job. He's coming back. Wow. So it's important to have a relationship with Jesus Christ, folks. I mean, really, to have Him in your heart. All right, so Mike, we had the asteroid. You said there was going to be 17 events in 2023. We had the first one on January 5th. We've had the second one now. You're saying the next 72 hours. What should we look for in the next 72 hours?
I'm actually looking at the sun, specifically the sun this time. I understand what it can do, right?
Yeah.
To be candid with you, there really is there's no table of things that are limitations or that can't happen. That would be irresponsible to say. So in essence, you know, we know when something is coming in, but as far as the reactions, it is still up in the air. It could be very severe. What's starting to be found out is how to measure these inbound pulses. And that's the first step, because once they can be measured, right, some of the reactions can be better gauged, which makes for better preparation of the thing. Now, for me, always, when these pulses come in, maybe you have some electronics you don't want to be disturbed, right? You might want to make sure they're not plugged into a charging cable, adapter, whatever the case is. The reason why is because static, it's not from a surge. Some of your electronics, yes. But take your cell phone, for example. Your cell phone is susceptible to static electricity. And anytime you have a pulse coming in, the static layer in the atmosphere, right? Because we have the exosphere, thermosphere, mesosphere, stratosphere, troposphere. Right below the troposphere is where that static discharge can actually begin to culminate. A cell phone has antennae in it, inside of it, right?
Yeah.
It has, I believe, 4 or 5 sets of antennae. It can actually transmit, it can do a pulse burst of about probably, I'd say about 1,200 watts. Your cell phone can do that. And so it can also be very receptive to static electricity, yes. And that's what you want to watch for. So I always if I have a cellular device, I keep it away from everything else electronic. That's one of the first moves, right?
Keep it away from everything else electronic.
Yeah. Also, I never do I put a cell phone up to my face. Always have a headset. I'd rather have Bluetooth, right, and hear somebody through Bluetooth. That's a small radio signal, than have that cell phone near my head for very good reason.
Okay.
But I keep it away. Keep your cell phone away from electronics. That cell phone can generate, if it were ever to go into an overcurrent mode, Passball would send out it can send out a burst of about 2,400 watts. That's very dangerous and very hot. Not to mention your battery is vulnerable. So probably not a good idea.
So don't be talking. So I always leave my phone on speaker when I'm talking, and like right now I've got it plugged into my.
That's a good thing.
You're coming through the speakers in my room here. Okay, I hear you all through the room.
That's a good thing.
That way I don't have to hold it. But you're saying, don't be holding that thing up against your head because you're actually.
Yeah, I don't do that, Passball, because it's that cell phone, right? It emits 2.4 gigahertz. All the 2.4, 1.25, those happen to be biological resonance. That's your biological resonance, actually.
So what does that mean? Whoa.
Well, when you have Wi-Fi and when you have a cell phone, you have that, constantly, you're in the middle of all that stuff. It can actually begin to alter how you do things, how your body does things biologically. That's a fact. That's not,
it's not
something spooky. That's a fact.
I mean, does it affect your brain's capability of speaking?
Your brain, contrary to popular belief, your brain is extremely shielded. I mean, extremely shielded,
yes.
Right? So I think by way of your brain, you get more exposure away from your cell phone than you would a cell phone, right? All of us are exposed to things, but your brain is highly resilient, and it can rewire itself and add extra layers of protection to itself. So that's why we're not all raving mad right now. But your body is different. Your body does not have the protection that's in your skull. Your body is prone to just about everything. It really is. And if you notice in this day and age, other than the external radiation that we get through electronics, we're generating radiation on the surface of the earth that everybody's exposed to through electronic devices. And if you would look up some of the significance behind 2.4 gigahertz, right, then you'd find out, oops, this is a biological resonance. Right? This is a key to actually stopping your liver or slowing down your liver, speeding up your kidney processes when they shouldn't. Your body can produce twice as much bile when you do that, or it can totally shut that off.
Whoa.
So when you start reading that of real medical results, real peer-reviewed journals, none of this stuff that people have inflamed on the internet, nor theory. I don't do theory. I don't like theory too much.
Right. You do facts.
But 2.4 gigahertz can affect your body, and the world is covered with Wi-Fi, right?
5G.
Wi-Fi is at intervals of your biological resonance.
Mike, okay, CERN. Now, I know the webinar is tomorrow night, starts at 6 o'clock. Your presentation is just unbelievable. You really bring out a lot of powerful stuff here that people really need to hear. But can we talk a little bit about CERN? Because you're talking about, I mean, with these things happening, like the core of the Earth and the pulse is coming in, is CERN, and CERN affects our magnetosphere, okay, right?
Yes.
So are they concerned about CERN? Are they running this thing wide open? What are they doing when these pulses are coming?
CERN has magnets, right?
Yeah,
those magnets are amazing. They're amazing. Let me give you an example of those magnets. The magnets right now can shield the CERN facility from the radiation of a nuclear blast. They can redirect that radiation. That's a weapon. So if you could take magnetic field lines, right? And they have something called, in quantum computers, they have a mechanism or a few devices where they've done something they probably shouldn't have. Now, this is going to sound like science fiction.
All right.
but I'm going to give you the small part of it. So your body is held together by a force. That force is comprised of photons and magnetic field lines, right? A quantum computer can actually calculate what those magnetic field lines, how they're composed. It can recreate that force between the particles in your body. So if somebody could actually record that in somebody's body, right, and play it back, then whatever they induced, because the body has something called entrainment, both in the mind and the body, which means it follows frequencies. If you're around a certain frequency, your brain is going to tune itself to that frequency and begin to operate by that frequency. Really? That's very important. That's called entrainment. That happens with beta waves and delta waves and alpha waves. So your body will actually begin to mimic every frequency outside of itself.
It adapts to its environment.
Yes, it will. It'll do it in a heartbeat. So if somebody were to generate certain magnetic field lines by way of its pattern, your body would replicate that pattern over a very short amount of time, which means if that is possible, if somebody had an injury, right? Say they had a cut. Well, if you could play back where that cut is, or their arm, whatever the case is, prior to the injury, then those forces would draw the material right back to the way it was. So here's what happens. Even a blood cell is made up of tiny, tiny particles that do not touch each other. They're held together largely through photons or light magnetically.
Right.
If you reproduce that type, the memory of what those field lines were actually doing matters all around you. This is what they're finding out of the air that we feel, right? When you just raise your hand up, do you not know that you're putting your hand up through tons of material? All that material that we cannot see can be utilized to coalesce into matter. They found this out in the ocean. When a certain a certain glass jar held a small speaker playing a very specific frequency, and guess what happened when they played it?
What?
Human DNA began to form outside of that jar.
Whoa!
In the ocean. It only works in the ocean.
Whoa.
That is a proven we're not talking about, this isn't science fiction. That's real.
So you're telling me they take a glass jar with a speaker playing a certain megahertz under the ocean, in the ocean, and it will then birth human DNA.
DNA starts coalescing. Yes.
Is that human DNA? Is that human DNA?
Human DNA begins to coalesce. Not animal, not some weird stuff, but human DNA begins to coalesce.
Is it because man is made from the dust of the ground, and God spoke his volume voice, and man became a living soul? I mean,
when I tell you what, when it says God spoke, I believe that when God speaks, is my belief, when God speaks, all the elements have to obey. He created all the elements.
I agree with that.
So when he speaks, all the elements begin to obey, and they coalesce into whatever he spoke. That's what I believe. So if he spoke, just like when he spoke peace over the storm, all these small elements in the storm had no choice but to obey his command.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
By the way, that same speech is in us. If we speak,
amen.
Well, I probably won't go down that road. That'd be a longer subject. But that same speech is in us. But they replicated this, Pastor Paul, with a speaker.
Unbelievable.
With a speaker.
And a jar.
Yes, they did.
And a glass jar.
Yes, they did. And a glass jar. A mason jar at that. No expensive jar, but a mason jar. The frequency itself was, that was by a quantum computer. The frequency was. It was
so it's
generated
a certain
by
frequency.
Quantum computer.
So are you saying a certain frequency could possibly be what is part of generating life? Is there a certain frequency?
Well, your matter is held together by the force of photons.
Yeah,
right?
I know. That's the God particle. The God particle.
And photon. You know what a photon is, right?
Yeah, that's light.
Light.
Yeah.
So things are held together by light.
Well, God is light, and there's no darkness in him at all. It says in John.
Right. So if you could replicate certain things, that's why all this alien language, right? It seems mystical right now because a lot of people don't understand the real physics involved. I don't believe they're from out there. I believe they're from under your feet. But their craft and all this stuff that they have when they disappear, reappear, and this, that, and the other for specific individuals, they're doing what they do purposely. Right? They're very seductive. They do what they do purposely. I don't make a distinction between good and bad. Here's why. Because it's having experience in certain fields, you really don't know who's a representative of the Most High or not. So when I ever see any of them, I just walk the other direction. I'm not interested in seeing anything like that.
When you see them, I mean, okay, have you been under? Can you say, have you been underground in any of these areas where you've seen other beings?
I'll say I've been close to things I cannot take out of my brain. I can't once you see something, you cannot unsee it. And it's better for a person don't see anything like that.
Okay, so there's some things you've seen that you can't speak about, but you can't get it out of your brain either. I mean, there's some things that would blow most people away, right?
Well, a lot of people think they really they want to know, but the truth is, they don't want to know. In truth, they don't want to know. It just will disrupt them. See, because it does not change the future. It's not going to change their present day. It's not going to solve any problems. It's going to be another layer of a ton of questions, right? And possibly some life-altering effects that'll be in their life. It's something else they have to deal with. And it's not like they're going to get recognized for. It's not going to help them at all. It just adds complexity to a person's life. And I don't know about anybody else, but this is a good time for a person to become very simplistic in everything they do, so they won't be so stressed out.
Because it's going to get very complex. So
yes,
many strange. When you start talking about massive flooding in one place, superheat in another, weird things happening, storms like we're not used to, weather not being in the right seasons, people are their minds are going to be blown of what in the world's going on. And so what you're saying is stay calm, stay collected, keep yourself humble, keep yourself simple. Don't get yourself too caught up in it all, because it could drive you insane.
It will. I'm sure that many people out there have gone down in certain directions only to find out it's not going to answer anything for them. That's why I say it's so seductive, because it feels like you're going to get some sort of reward, some sort of validation on the other end, but that's not the case. That's just not the case. Most people who find out, they get in depth and knowledge about these things, even witnesses to certain events, no validation. None. It simply starts to destroy and consume their lives. That's a very seductive thing. Angels of the living God, they don't sneak around corners. They don't pop in at night and start doing they announce themselves. They tell a person what they're there for,
they
right?
Do. Yes.
And then they do what they got to do and they're gone. But these other things are very seductive. That'd be like a peeping Tom who appears in the sky just when a person looks, right? Because they always appear when you don't suspect them, when you're not looking for them. They catch you off guard to make you wonder. But here's what really happens. Once a person begins to wonder, they create a desire. Desire within a human being, because God gave us authority over the earth, is called a portal. And so a person effectively becomes a portal, and much darkness can come through that person out to other people once they cultivate that desire. And so if they shut down that door within themselves, less people around them will be affected.
Well, this is true.
Because they don't share the horror stories about these things, right? They don't share the horror stories they don't put it together about animal mutilations. That should most people should look for the hormones that an animal puts out. You'll know why they're doing that. They're taking hormones. They're harvesting organs that produce hormones. And we all know what hormones do in a human being. Or if you introduce them into an embryo, we know what they do. Without having gigantism, they cause a human being to be much more robust, double the bone density, all these different things. Yeah. And so, but when you find these animal mutilations, no blood, but they've gone into the parts where specific organs are. They've been doing in just about every single case, they're doing the same thing over and over again.
Yeah.
They're taking the hormonal organs of this animal and utilizing them in some way. And that's explanatory in the book of Daniel. At the feet of that statue the iron mixed with miry clay. I mean, that's almost self-explanatory. They will mingle themselves with the seed of men, but they will not cleave one to another.
Yeah.
Because in Genesis 6, they did cleave, right?
I know, they did.
They took unto themselves wives. But this time they won't cleave. They won't take a wife. They're just going to mingle their material with the material of mankind.
They're just going to take the hormones and just take the reproductive organs and the capability to propagate without having to be a part of the human race, which that's what happened in Genesis 6, certainly.
And if you have a human born like that, right? If a human being is in the earth, not sanctioned by the living God, a spirit from the living God will not enter into that human being. And that's a problem they have with clones. When they clone something, the true story is clones become violent. They become very violent. A lot of the sheep that they were cloning back in the, I believe it was back in the 90s, they didn't tell anybody that those sheep were eating each other. Why would a sheep eat another sheep? See, they become very bloodthirsty and violent.
Yeah, because it wasn't natural. So you're saying clones, human clones, would be almost like soulless, no soul.
It'd be another. That's right. And in Genesis 6, those spirits, all those Nephilim that died in the earth, their spirits were not sanctioned to go to heaven. They didn't go. They remained in the earth, and they will be known as evil spirits. And they like to war and fight and do all this. And so, what do we see happening? Even Biden and Donald Trump recognize that we had a violence increase in the earth like no other. It's going up, up, and up, and they are even right now they're scrambling to see how they can decrease the violence. They talk to Hollywood, the music industry, and everything else. They're just perplexed by this.
They're trying to figure.
They don't understand.
They're trying to figure out there's a way to change the musical tones. If they're trying. They're
trying to tone. They're really trying to tone it down so people won't be so violent.
Right.
We have a mass shooting every other day now.
Yeah, it's terrible. And so they're looking for drugs that they could reduce the violence and the aggressiveness. They're trying to they're putting it in the food. They're trying every way in the world to mellow us out because of the violent. And you're saying that violent behavior is really because of the demon spirits. And I like what you said, Mike. An angel always announces that it's an angel of the Lord. An angel of the Lord will never intrude on you. It will make the announcement, I am an angel. I am representative. I'm divine from the Lord. Demons don't do that. Demons appear, they dart,
seduce.
They seduce, and then if you're curious, you go hunting for them, you will find them. They would love that. You're opening your spirit up, you become a portal, you're opening the gate, and then you're allowing these things to enter into your life and your mind and your beings. And sort of like the song, you can check out anytime you like, but you can never leave.
That's right.
You let them in.
God gave man dominion over the earth. So if a human being begins to agree with darkness and desires darkness, and they have dominion over the earth, then that demon can by right exercise dominion through that person for negative things in the earth. And so we have violence and crime and everything else happening because a lot of people say, why would God let this happen? Right? Because he gave us dominion. God doesn't control us. He's not controlling us. He's giving us a chance to choose with everything that we do. But a lot of people have a desire for darkness. They're being duped. They're being seduced. It's getting rough.
So these demon hunters, these demon hunters, these ghost hunters, these guys don't know what they're doing, do they?
They're marking, you know what? I believe they're marking themselves. If I were to take a piece of paper and cast out a demon by a piece of some ritual that I dug out of a book, that demon can make it look like it works. And if I believe it works, when the time comes for manifestation, they've got me. Right? Because I have no defense. They will scramble at the name of Jesus. They most certainly will.
They can't handle that.
Just like these encounters with aliens. When I talk to people, I tell them this one thing. Well, if you rebuke them in the name of Jesus, why do they leave if they're so intelligent, right? Why can't they stand Christ?
They can't.
So it tells you, it lets you know who they are.
They're demons.
And if anybody out there is having an issue with them, just rebuke them in the name of Jesus and watch what happens.
Is there, Mike, maybe you could tell us, is there some scientific studies going on in our government with people who have had alien encounters, which are really demon encounters, but I mean, have had these alien encounters, alien abductions?
Oh, yeah. First, starting in the 90s, they tapped the phones of most of these people. In fact, in the years leading up to 2012, if anybody spoke about abduction, that was one of the key words, where their cell phone would be tapped or their house phone would be tapped. And a lot of people who have these experiences, they know about the strange clicks on their telephone because they wanted to know where they needed to validate where these people were, what they were talking about. The truth is, the government thinks they're liars. So a lot of people say, well, the government's working with them. No, you have a bunch of possessed people that do things with them, right?
Right.
But as far as the government, the real people who've dealt with them, they have also been crossed by them, duped by them. They're known to be liars. They always promise the weirdest things. Like for women have dreams, and they'll see them in their dreams and say, well, what are you doing? Well, we're helping you, and we're helping you lose weight. We're doing something to your DNA. They'll tell them anything to have them agree to go with them, right? Or to just shut themselves down and go with them. And then the woman, she can't recall what took place.
Right.
Though that woman will have issues for the rest of her life, and with no explanation. Medical doctors have certain screens, right? When they're doing the medical billing or diagnoses, there are certain screens. And when a person comes in with a specific complaint, especially like if they lose a child, embryo or something like that, they're supposed to report this. They have to report that.
The doctor does. The doctor does. Most certainly. And once that's reported, they have good accountability of these weird things that happen. It's just like this last UFO disclosure thing. Yeah. It should have gotten out that the government and Harry Reid and all those guys were actually investigating werewolves, ghosts, big giant beaver looking things, right? Wow. Why? Because they saw them come out, these white lights that people are dying to see. These green orbs and these red orbs, they better stay away from them, because you start having that type of desire, these things, you're just opening yourself up to see exactly what they are. The problem is, you give them permission, they will come into your life, and they will try to destroy it. But these things, more and more, almost have it's almost like so many people have a desire that we're having more and more manifestations, to the point they're going to have to address the entirety of the world this year about that subject again. So we're going to hear more about disclosure.
That's going to be a global address. Yes. Everybody's going to hear about it.
I've often thought, because, I see the United States, the drip-drap, a little bit here and there about everything going on, but I'm looking for a global summit on aliens. And they'll call it aliens. They won't call it demons. They won't call it demons. But that's really what we're dealing with, demons.
There will be. And I also suspect that after a given amount of time, the U.S. is going to break away from all relations with everything happening in the rest of the world. But it's going to take a few events before that takes place.
The United States will pull away from this entire global cabal?
Yeah, I think so. It's going to take a couple of events. I say that because we have a lot of people, not so much some of the bad people, but there are good people in this nation who really believe in Christ.
Amen.
They will not move from their faith, and they keep praying. And with that type of prayer and with that type of faith, it's only a matter of time before all the bad people start to extinguish themselves, right?
Wow.
Which will leave some of the good people who will step up. The spiritual people will finally step up, and they'll begin to take roles they never had a boldness to take anymore. That's happening on a small scale in a lot of places right now. It's quite extraordinary. But I believe that's going to happen more and more, and eventually the U.S. is going to say, no, we're not doing this anymore. It's just going to break away, right? Because we're going to find out a lot of things are just ungodly at best.
That's amazing. And actually, gives me hope. And when I look in the book of Revelation, when it talks about the eagle's wings, it doesn't join the eagle. The bald eagle's wings don't join the monster in Revelation 13. You can see it in Daniel 7. It talks about the last kingdoms of the end times, just before the monster beast is made. But then the eagle's wings, the United States doesn't go. It doesn't join. It stays over here in Revelation 12 and flies over Israel, protects Israel. So maybe this comes on, Mike. There's this time when, as you say, the United States just says, you know what, we're not playing this game. We're just not playing this game. And that's because God's people rose up through prayer.
I do believe that. Yeah. I do believe. I've seen it too much, Pastor Paul. After a certain point of Americans, somebody who's been in America after a certain point They get tired of fighting. The internal thing is they say, hey, we got to stop. We got to quit. It never fails. They do it every single time.
Yeah.
That's when we actually get together, and the nation, the whole spirit of the nation changes from time to time to time.
We're seeing
That's how
it
we've
right
been
now.
growing. And so it's about to happen again.
We're seeing it on a small scale with the school boards. I got to be careful with this topic. But the school boards, the people during the pandemic basically started looking over their kids' shoulder to see what they were learning in school, and they said, what in the world is all of this? And we've seen this revolution, if you will, revival of parents taking back the school boards. And so, like, we're not put up with this no more. This is ridiculous. We're not going to do this. And we're seeing that. And it's spreading across the entire nation. I'm thinking that what you're saying is it goes deeper than that. We're going to see people say, we're not living under this type of government no more, or this type of way of thinking. We're not going to be a part of this. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I think, again, people are going to get tired of darkness, and they're going to look right towards Christ again. That happened before. They looked towards, and just like World War II, all those soldiers got tired of fighting. They said, I don't want anything to do with fighting. We need to solve things. And a lot of people turned Christian after World War II because they said, we got to start doing things in holiness, what God expects us to do. Because they try to do it the right way by politicians. They try to do it the right way by all these behavioral scientists and philosophers. They burned out on all that until they turned back to the living God through Christ.
Amen.
And it happened after World War II. It happened again. It just takes, we have to get beat up first to wake us up.
Yeah.
And then we'll see it and we'll say, nope.
Are we on the brink? Are we on the brink of World War III, Mike? Is it gonna?
Sure we are. You know what? That we are. In fact, right now at the White House, there's a nervousness. Truth be told, there's a chill in the White House right now. There's a chill in the Pentagon. There are advisements because some of the threats that people are hearing are not. It's not a joke.
No.
And it can happen at any moment, right? Then, I've never said that before. It can happen at any moment.
No, you have.
But it can happen at any moment. Putin he's not playing. He has an entire set of brigades set up for nuclear launches, right? These guys are activated. These guys are ready. There are heat plume signatures all over the place, which means the fuel is flowing, right? The systems are on. They're on standby. You don't do that because, of a small conflict. You just don't bring things out like that. But he's not the only one. If people could see the Earth in its entirety, they would notice that a lot of countries have gotten their equipment ready concerning nuclear armaments and the weapons above that. Hopefully they will not use the weapons above that, but I wouldn't be surprised if we wake up early one morning. There's been several launch detections, right? I also would not be surprised at sabotage that happens at nuclear facilities in Germany, the UK, and the USA. I wouldn't be surprised if on the east coast of the USA and near Texas, a compromise in a nuclear facility takes place where people have to evacuate an entire city. Right?
Wow.
Because a lot of people have gotten to, sometimes the urgency does not translate.
Right.
In other words, you can have people at the top, people who know of something being a credible threat, that it's real. And sometimes it will not translate to those who are running facilities in charge of certain securities of certain places. It just won't translate. And if that happens, we drop our guard. We're going to feel the weight of that, that error. It's like, almost inevitable.
So it sounds like there's all systems go. All systems are on standby, ready to go. Russia has several ready, pointing in several different countries' directions and cities. I think the UK is one for sure they're staring down. Germany, it sounds like, because of the tanks moving in. And the United States is another target, and there may even be other targets. And that means the United States has got to have stuff ready, and the UK and Germany and other nations.
That's right.
And so we got guns pointed at each other's heads. And at some point, someone feels the need to make the move. And or
pass ball through untested, the thoroughness of untested systems. It could be some sort of electronic response, meaning if a computer ever interprets it, matter war had already begun.
An AI.
Right?
Yeah.
It's going to do its thing. And I hate to tell everybody, but earlier this month, the internet is now being sent through, you could say, control ports. AI is very active right now, very active. That's what Elon Musk was warning about.
Yeah.
But it's too late. It's already activated. It's already going, and it's doing
So in other words, it's not human
itself.
beings that are going to make the decision necessarily to fire the first shot. An AI is going to make that decision.
Well, it could, yes.
It could.
It most certainly could. The way it looks right now, though, Putin and Iran, they may very well make a move.
Yeah.
They may. But think about it. Putin is backed into a wall.
Yeah.
He's got NATO after him. Equipment is going over there, which is why he had that deterrence of missile launches.
Yeah.
Right? He already understands what he's facing. He's not stupid.
No.
He's extremely intelligent. The rest of the world can paint him the way they want to, but he's in the way of their little global plans. They want him out of the way. That's why he wanted the Ukraine back to stop NATO. That's what he really wanted.
That's why.
It was hard to communicate that back then because so many people were biased towards, for some reason, they like to praise leaders, but that kind of is dying down, thank God. But Putin wanted NATO to stop because they had lied to him about 13, 14 times, and they reneged on certain deals, and the Russian people were suffering, but they're resilient, and so here we are. Here we are, and now everybody has to be in position because nobody trusts the other person.
No one. There's no more trust because there's been too many times they've broken each other's word.
Yeah.
The webinar's tomorrow night, Mike. This is where we talk about world leaders. This is where we talk about the events that are shaping our world and about to destroy our world. You have a great presentation. I think you went about 90 minutes, and it was phenomenal. People should go ahead and get the tickets, I think, and get ready for tomorrow. It's going to be eye-opening. And you also share with us. You also share with us the next 2 dates.
Yes. Yes.
And we're not out of the woods.
Yes. No, we're not. Unfortunately, we're not. We're going to find out what happens in the next 72 hours. Of course, this one is sporadic. Passport is very different. So I actually, with this one, I would give it. There's no telling what will happen. It could be worse. It could be very different. It could turn totally geological. But given the nature, if they're correct about the core, right?
Yeah.
If they're correct, something has happened to the core. I would not agree to say it stopped. I wouldn't do that.
Okay.
But something has happened. This report could be a bit ambitious, right? It could be a bit ambitious because, by the way, they can't. Some of those guys can't. They don't have the ability to see down that far, and the equipment that does what it does is just not. They
don't have access. They don't have access to all the information.
I think that somebody is warning the public. I do. How else would a scientist, right, who's full of conviction, ever get the word out to anybody else? They would have to publish some type of report that would get everybody's attention.
Right.
Hoping that people would look at the report and say, wait a minute, that makes no sense. And then look into that report. Right.
To find out what is the real truth. What is
there
the
you
real
go.
numbers.
So something is afoot. Something is happening. Something is happening with the Earth, dealing with the interior of the Earth. And Pascal, if the core of the Earth has slowed down, the external forces that are playing its role, both with the sun and the earth, is closer than anybody suspected. And that would not be good news for anybody, right?
No.
Well, good news for us, just not for those who are outside of
Christ.
Outside of Christ.
Amen to
not
that.
Not good news for them.
That's why you want to be ready, folks. That's why you want to be ready. Mike, appreciate it tonight. This was a powerful, powerful evening and some great information on several different subjects. And I think it was very eye-opening and very encouraging too, because it's following the path of the Bible and the return of Christ. We need just to have him in our heart. Appreciate you.
Amen to that.
Thank you for being
always an honor, Pastor Paul. It's always an honor.
The honor's mine, believe me. God bless you so much. Thank you.